You might think that telling the difference between ADHD and bipolar disorder would be easy, but the truth is, these two conditions actually share a lot of overlapping symptoms, like hyperactivity, impulsivity, talking too much, risky behavior, and mood changes. Because of this overlap, ADHD and bipolar disorder are sometimes misdiagnosed. To make things more confusing, ADHD and bipolar disorder can also occur together. I actually have bipolar 1 and ADHD. Even though the symptoms can look similar, there are some key differences between the two. That's what I'm talking about today, how to tell the difference between ADHD and bipolar disorder. So let's talk about it. I'm Patty, the girl with blue energy. I have bipolar disorder and ADHD, and I make videos about mental health and personal growth. Let's start by talking about some of the symptoms of ADHD and bipolar disorder. Hyperactivity. So most people know that hyperactivity is a symptom of ADHD. When someone has hyperactivity with ADHD, they're typically restless, have a hard time sitting still, fidgety. Those are kind of the typical symptoms of hyperactivity. But people with bipolar disorder experience something similar called hypomania. When we are hypomanic, we have an increase in energy, we don't need as much sleep, and we may take on a bunch of goal-related activities. The difference between hypomania and hyperactivity is something that's like an everyday thing, and hypomania is something that happens during a mood episode. A mood episode typically lasts at least 4 days, but it can go on longer. And there's a change in your mood. So you may become elevated in mood or irritable in your mood. But this is going on alongside of the hypomania. So you have more energy. You may seem like you're hyperactive, but it's actually not quite the same thing. The key differences between hyperactivity and hypomania is that the hyperactivity is something that happens every day or it's an ongoing thing, whereas the hypomania is something that happens during a mood episode with a mood change. Distractibility. If you have ADHD, you've probably been called a squirrel before, and I hate that. But distractibility is a symptom of ADHD. But did you know it's also a symptom of bipolar disorder? It's clearly listed in the DSM-5 as a symptom you might experience during a manic or hypomanic episode. So it's a symptom of both ADHD and bipolar disorder. While the symptoms are basically the same, the reason you become distracted is different. People with ADHD may find that their attention drifts easily or they have difficulty finishing tasks, and this is usually something that starts in childhood. People with bipolar disorder, on the other hand, become distracted when they are hypomanic or manic. So it's not something that happens all the time, but when they are in a hypomanic or manic episode, they may become distracted because of things like racing thoughts, or their ideas are just jumping around in their brain, and it makes it harder for them to stay focused, and that's where the distractibility comes from. Impulsivity. Are you the type that blurts things out without thinking, like, oops, I probably shouldn't have said that? Or are you the kind of impulsive where you get in your car and drive to New Mexico with $23 in your bank account kind of impulsive? People with ADHD have impulsivity that looks kind of like, oops, I probably shouldn't have said that. They might have issues with interrupting people, blurting things out, or making decisions without really thinking about it, but not huge life-changing decisions. That's bipolar disorder. Impulsivity is a huge symptom of bipolar mania, but for us, it's not little impulsive things. It's major impulsive things like reckless spending, risky behavior, dangerous behavior, doing kind of crazy things. That is what I mean by impulsivity with bipolar mania. It's not the same as, oops, I interrupted you. I probably shouldn't have blurted that out. It's big things that can be life-changing. Talking too much. Talking too much can be a symptom of both ADHD and bipolar disorder, but these symptoms look very different. So I'm going to explain. So the key difference between talking too much with ADHD versus bipolar disorder is that when you have ADHD, you just might be chatty or have problems interrupting people or get excited and talk a lot. When you see this in bipolar disorder, it happens during a mood episode, and you usually see this during bipolar mania. So they will talk super fast, incredibly fast. You won't get a word in, and it's like they have this pressure to talk. But it only happens during mood episodes, and they talk super fast. Now, they may be chatty as their baseline, but with mania, they are talking incredibly fast and jump around, and you can't even get them to take a breath. That's how fast and how pressured it is. Sleep problems. Both ADHD and bipolar disorder can affect your sleep, but for very different reasons, and what you experience as a sleep issue with ADHD is a lot different than bipolar disorder. So with ADHD, you may have trouble with staying up late or not keeping a good bedtime or not getting enough sleep. But it's usually because you have poor sleep routines because of the ADHD, like you stay up late because you're hyper-focused on something, or you're distracted and you don't want to go to sleep. And then you wake up and you didn't get enough sleep. So people with ADHD can have problems with not getting enough sleep, but it's because of the disorder's effect on their sleep routines. They still feel tired. They just wake up and they didn't get enough sleep because they may have stayed up too late or something like that. With bipolar disorder, we have a decreased need for sleep when we become hypomanic, or especially when we're manic. We don't need sleep. So we get really bad insomnia because we can't sleep. We don't need sleep. We want to be up and working on our goal-related activities. People with bipolar disorder have very significant issues with their sleep when they're manic. So if you have a whole lot of energy and you're not sleeping, but you're still waking up refreshed and ready to go, that is more likely hypomania or mania than ADHD, because with ADHD, you will wake up feeling tired, but you still might stay up too late in spite of being tired. Mood changes. Do you notice changes in your mood? Do you get triggered really easily, like you get really emotional really easily, or you get angry or overreact or frustrated really easily? This can be because of emotional dysregulation, and both people with ADHD and bipolar disorder sometimes struggle with emotional dysregulation. But the mood changes that you see in ADHD and bipolar disorder are very, very different. So with ADHD, when you experience a mood change, it's usually an emotional reaction or a response to something. It's triggered by something or situational. So if your girlfriend or boyfriend breaks up with you, or you have a bad grade in school, you may overreact or get emotional or get depressed, or you do really well at something, you may get excited, but it's triggered by something. It is not a mood episode. So with bipolar disorder, on the other hand, we can have mood changes that are triggered by something, but we also experience hypomania or mania or depression that is simply caused by a mood episode, and not because we had an emotional reaction or something going on in our life to cause it. When we have a mood episode, it lasts for several days or several weeks, depending on if it's mania or depression, and whether you have bipolar 1 or 2. But these aren't little short-lived moments of emotional responses. These are episodes that last for a lengthy period of time. And depression. With bipolar disorder, people experience episodes of hypomania or mania and depression. But what about ADHD? Depression is not directly a symptom of ADHD, but people with ADHD can have co-occurring depression or episodes of depression that are situational. So how do you tell hyperactive from hypomanic or impulsivity from mania? The biggest difference between ADHD and bipolar disorder is how their symptoms show up over time. With ADHD, the symptoms usually start when you're very young. Most people are diagnosed in elementary school, and the symptoms tend to stick with you. They are chronic symptoms, meaning they are part of your everyday behavior, and they don't come and go in episodes. With bipolar disorder, the onset is usually later. Many people are diagnosed in late adolescence or early adulthood, and their symptoms usually show up with their mood episodes. So the main difference is whether the symptoms occur with your everyday behavior like ADHD or during mood episodes like bipolar disorder. Why do ADHD and bipolar disorder sometimes get misdiagnosed? There are several reasons why ADHD and bipolar disorder can get misdiagnosed. And one of the reasons is because their symptoms can look pretty similar. In one study I read about, age was found to influence diagnosis. So in this study, children were 2 to 6 times more likely to receive a bipolar diagnosis in comparison to adults who were 2 to 4 times more likely to receive an ADHD diagnosis for similar symptoms. Another reason this can get confusing is because people who already have ADHD, who then present to their doctor with symptoms of depression, may end up with a diagnosis of co-occurring depression with ADHD, and their symptoms might actually be masking an undiagnosed bipolar 2 disorder. This actually happens more than you would think. Around 69% of people who eventually get diagnosed with bipolar disorder were first diagnosed with depression or some other condition. ADHD and bipolar disorder can also occur together, which was my experience. Since I'm older, ADHD wasn't a thing when I was in elementary school, so I was never diagnosed with it as a child. And it didn't occur to me that I had ADHD and bipolar disorder because I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder for a long time. But having both ADHD and bipolar disorder happens more than you'd think. According to research, 1 in 13 people with ADHD also have bipolar disorder, and 1 in 6 people with bipolar disorder also have ADHD. Another reason why some people are misdiagnosed when they have ADHD or bipolar disorder is something that's not widely talked about, but I know happens because I've seen it in my real life firsthand with more than one person. So ADHD doesn't carry the social stigma that bipolar disorder does. For whatever reason, a lot of people are okay with being diagnosed with ADHD, but they don't want to have that bipolar disorder. So they may mask their symptoms or hide their symptoms or just deny their symptoms so that they aren't either diagnosed with both ADHD and bipolar or diagnosed with bipolar disorder at all. I hope this video made it easier to understand the key differences between ADHD and bipolar disorder. And if you found this video helpful, please click the like button and of course subscribe. I'll have another video for you guys real soon.